Hi, I'm Frankie, and in this video, I'm going to go over transformation policies and how they work in Azure API Management, so you can make changes to request and response data for your APIs. This series is based on the Azure API Management hands-on lab. If you want to follow along, or you want to do it on your own, you can find a link to it in the description. There are 5 categories of transformation policies that we'll go over. I'll share some scenarios for each one that give you an idea of when it may be put to use, and then I'll share a demo for each category by implementing a transformation policy. Find and replace transformation policies are the most self-explanatory. Anytime you want to find and replace information on an API request or response, you can do so with this policy. In the Azure portal, let's implement a find and release policy. I'll go over to APIs, my APIs page. I'll go to the Colors API, and we'll go to the Get Random Color API. Right now, when I test this Get Random Color API, it will return a color with blue in the name of the color output. If I send this a few more times, you can see light blue, blue, dark blue, lots of variations. Let's replace this with yellow by using a find and replace policy. So in the Get Random Color operation, I'll go to Design. I'll go into the Outbound Processing, where I'll select the Policy Editor. I'll expand this, and after Base, I'll show Snippets, and I'll select the Find and Replace String and Body transformation policy, where we'll look to find blue and replace it to yellow. And I'll save this. Now I can see in this Get Random Color operation, the find and replace policy in place. When we test this now, we should see blue get replaced with yellow. And there's an example. Dark yellow, light yellow, whereas that was blue before. Conditional transformation policies are policies that will be implemented and executed only when certain conditions are met. Let's add a conditional policy. Within my Star Wars API, let's go to Get People by ID. In the Get People by ID operation, when I test this, we'll put in 1. I can see a variety of information that comes back. Luke Skywalker has a handful of properties that's returned. Say I had information that I wanted to only provide certain developers based on the product that they were using. Maybe there was different pricing tiered products that I was offering to developers and other API consumers, like a smaller package and then a larger package that they'd pay for that would give them more information. Let's create a conditional policy that'll remove some of this data unless an API consumer is using a specific product. Let's go to the Get People by ID operation, and we'll create a policy going outbound. Under base, we'll paste this code. You can find this snippet of code either in the Azure API Management hands-on lab or in a GitHub gist that I'll include in the description. What this transformation policy does is that when the request is 200, okay, and the product is not unlimited, then we will remove the hair, skin, and eye color and gender properties. First, we'll try it with the unlimited product subscription, where we should see the properties still there. Then we'll try it with a different product subscription, where we should see the properties removed. Coming to test, we'll choose our product unlimited, send a request. Oh, we gotta start with number 1. Could be any value, but we'll still use the same characters before. And we can still see our hair color, skin color, eye color, gender. This information is still there. Now let's choose a different product. That'll use a different subscription. Say our gold tier, send the request. Let's see if that information is still there. And it's not now. The information is gone. The gender, eye color, hair color, that's all been removed. because of our conditional transformation policy we put in place. Content modification transformations are when you want to change the content of your API request or response in some fundamental way. Let's add a content modification policy. I'll go over to my basic calculator API. I'll go to add to integers operation. And when I test this, let's add 3 and 5 together, which makes 8. I can see the output here listed is in XML format. Say I wanted to convert this XML to JSON. There's a transformation policy that'll help me do that. Let's implement this by going to design, go to add to integers, and in the outbound processing policies, we'll expand this. Under base, let's open up the snippets and find the convert XML to JSON. I have a handful of different attributes that can be altered for this policy, and I won't want it to be JavaScript friendly for specific forms. Instead, I want it to convert directly. So I'll use the kind direct attribute. I want to always try to apply this conversion. This last attribute is to consider if there is a JSON header being requested in the request headers. I don't want to care about this. I want to try and convert regardless of the headers that get sent in the request. So we'll save this. And now we'll give this a test. Let's add 4 and 4 together. And now I can see that my response is in JSON format. Transformations that involve adding and removing headers are done for a variety of reasons. Better security, better performance, better user experience are a handful of drivers that would make you want to use these policies. As part of our fourth transformation category of adding and removing headers, let's remove 2 headers now and see how that works using transformation policies. In this response example, adding 2 integers, we see this ASP.NET version and this powered by header. Let's remove these using transformation policies. I'll go to design, I'll go to add to integers, and I'll go to the outbound processing policies. Let's expand this, and down right after our XML to JSON, let's add a set header. We'll put in those policies, ASP.NET version. And for the existing action, I will just delete this. I'm not adding a value, so I'll close this. Let's add the next one, powered by, and save this. Now let's give this a try. When I test this, we shouldn't see those same 2 values come back. And sure enough, the values should be right here, but they're not because we just removed them using transformation policies. The last category of transformations is when you want to modify existing headers or query string parameters. Just like adding and removing headers, there's a variety of reasons why you may want to use this transformation category. So far, a lot of our transformation policies have been occurring in the outbound section of our policies. Let's create a header and a query string parameter that are sent in the inbound section so that our backend will get this new header and a query string parameter that our API management instance adds to the operation that's sent. When adding policies to the inbound section, we don't always know based on the response if those policies on the inbound section executed properly. That's why when testing your APIs, there's a trace feature that allows us to see the whole request response cycle that occurs within Azure API Management. Let's check out what it looks like before we add the inbound policies, and then we'll look at it after. Within the add to integers calculator operation, let's send a request and see what it looks like using trace. I'll add 3 and 6 together, and I'll select trace instead of send. I can see it's 200 response okay, and because I hit trace, I can see this full life cycle. What happens in the inbound section, the request that ends up getting forwarded to the backend service, what happens in the outbound section, and if there's an error, what gets executed within the on error section. Within the inbound section, I can see the information that comes in with the request. I can see some CORS operations that happen at our global policy level. I see this backend service being set because the calculator API needs to use HTTP. And I see the request that ultimately gets forwarded to the backend. And along with all of its headers and the URL. Coming to outbound, I can see my XML to JSON policy that we executed, and also our set header policies that removed the headers that we wanted to remove. Now let's add a query string parameter and a header in the inbound section so that when we forward our request to the backend, we see a new query string parameter and a header within the header section. Go into design, add two integers, policies within the inbound section. We'll expand this under base. Let's open up the snippets. And we'll go to set HTTP header. We'll call it X region data. If there already exists this header with the same name, we'll override it with this new value. Let's use the context variable to get access to our deployment in region. Let's add a query string parameter. I'll show snippets again. Set query string parameter. Let's call it X product data. If there is a query string parameter with the same name, we'll overwrite it. And the value, we'll use the context variable again to query the product that is being used for this request. What our context variables are doing is that if there is a product being used for this particular request, then the name will be given here as the value. Otherwise, it'll be given a name of none. And this context.deployment.region will just list the region that our API management instance is deployed in. Let's save this and we'll give it a try. Going back to test, for adding two integers, we'll need to run the trace again. Select trace. And then in the inbound section, let's see if our policy is executed properly. I see our set query parameter where first our expression was evaluated and executed, and then our query parameter was then actually appended to our URL that will send to our backend service. Next, we see our header that first is evaluated using the expression and then is actually added to our backend service as a header. If we look at the forwarded request to the backend, we can see our query parameter that is sent to the backend service. Then further down here, we see our new header that we created and sent to the backend. This should be everything you need to know to get started using transformation policies in Azure API Management. If this video was helpful for you, please like it and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And if you missed any of the past Azure API Management videos I've put together, you can find some of those here. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.